Hi everyone, this is Takatoshi Shibayama, the host of the Future Design Podcast. Incentivizing people for good action is always difficult. If we think about social topics like climate change, pollution reduction, etc., governments try to do this by providing tax cuts or subsidies. While good-hearted people and corporations align themselves without monetary incentives, many times this isn't enough for most. That is why we continuously have climate change summits and other worldwide conventions to tackle problems. What is missing in these schemes? My semi-educated guess is probably the lack of accountability and the direct consequences of not aligning with these goals. Governments should not be the only ones providing incentives and punitive measures. We as consumers, end users, and participants should also be involved in how governments, corporations are held accountable, being able to cast a vote of confidence. Blockchain has an incentive structure already built in to keep the network alive, but also its transparency as a proof of action for end users like us to demand corporations to have sustainability measures built in their supply chain. Justin Goldston, professor at Penn State University, was also a multi-time speaker of TEDx shows, and I speak about how the use of blockchain can enable accountability and drive more incentives for a corporation to do good. So without further ado, here is Professor Justin Goldston.
Future Design Podcast.
Thank you, Professor Justin, for being on our Future Design Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're the professor of Penn State University, and you talk a lot of things around supply chain management. I've heard you talk about on your TEDx show about blockchain and supply chain management. You also talk about AI for good as well. I heard you're writing a book about it. So it will be really, before we go into those topics, it will really be interesting to know who is Justin Goldston.
So thank you for that, and that's a great question. So I'm currently a professor of project and supply chain management at Penn State University, and my elevator pitch is that although I teach supply chain management, I also integrate emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and blockchain, as you referred to, and sustainability. And a lot of people say, well, you're all over the place. Why don't you focus on one thing? That is one thing, because another thing I always talk about is that this is all about systems thinking. Everything is interconnected. And I say that the jumping off point in the business from a sustainability perspective is supply chain management, right? And in order to have effective and efficient supply chains, you need that trust, blockchain, and you need that visibility, blockchain, and you need data to make a lot of data to make knowledgeable decisions in your business, AI. Right. So that's one thing that I always talk about from a business perspective. And yes, I talk a lot about a bunch of different topics, but all of these topics are interconnected. And in terms of artificial intelligence, in my book entitled AI for Good, I focus on outlining all the 17 UN SDGs based on how I view them. Because I was doing a project for an institution in the UK for a sustainable fashion school, where I interviewed a number of people from IBM, Unilever, Eileen MacArthur Foundation. And one of the first questions I always ask them is, what's your definition of sustainability? And then the second question I asked them is, what are your top 2 SDGs? But what was interesting is that every single person had a different definition. And every single person had 2 different priorities as compared to the other people, as well as myself. So that's what led me to the conclusion that all 17 SDGs are interconnected, and we need different definitions, viewing sustainability from different lenses, so that we can actually address every single one equally. So that's Justin Goldston.
But it must have been, you had a life before becoming a professor and having that interest in learning about blockchain, learning about AI, sustainability goals. I mean, there has been something that led you up to that. What was your kind of youth? What is your upbringing like?
So I grew up in the country in North Carolina. My father was a plant manager So that's what kind of linked my interest in the supply chain management discipline. Also, I was a computer science major. In my first semester in college, and because I played baseball at North Carolina A&T, we had mandatory computer labs every Wednesdays, but we would travel on Wednesday. So I went to the head of the computer science department and said, I travel for baseball on Wednesdays and we have mandatory computer labs. What do I have to do? He's like, well, you have to choose between computer science or baseball. And I said, you're not paying for my scholarship, so I'm out. So one of my teammates introduced me to the supply chain program, and given that I had experience in supply chain, given I had experience in manufacturing, given I had experience in technology, it came easy. It was easy to me. Once and coming from computer science where I was almost lost and I struggled, to something that is just second nature, it was a no-brainer. And I was blessed to be provided with the opportunity to go to a management consulting organization in California that implemented ERP applications. So I had that experience in working with organizations around the world on their digital transformations. Right. And so that's where my interest in technology from a supply chain management perspective comes into play. But from a sustainability perspective, I say that I've seen the good, bad, and dysfunctional and unethical in some cases. Right. So given that. And what I'm about to say, I can say this now that I'm not in the industry. So given that there were some situations where I would go to my leadership and say, hey, this is going on in this organization. Well, this is a high paying customer, so we can't really say anything. That's where this whole sustainability perspective comes in, from an environmental perspective, as well as that's from an environmental perspective, an ethical perspective. But from the societal or people perspective, my experiences, that's where that comes in. And whenever I share my experiences on these podcasts, then other people share their experiences with me. So I did one podcast on the supply chain revolution. Sherry Hines, very, very, very good friend of mine. So she reached out to me and said, there was this one black girl that was in one country, and she said, I'm not going to mention the country, so that was in one country, and said that she was always the only minority in that area, and she was always known as the colored girl or black girl, right? And she said that whenever I shared my story and Sherry shared her story, she felt she wasn't alone. She's like, two people that are authorities in this space that I work in, right? And they're sharing that their stories is like my story. That's impactful. So that's where the people aspect comes from, and not even being vulnerable, just telling my story is impacting people. And I go on these podcasts like we're having this discussion right now. So that I am nobody special. I always say I'm a country boy from North Carolina. I am nothing special. I just like to research and I love technology, right? And I have been blessed and afforded the platform to make a difference and to change the world. And that's what Sherry tells me time and time again. It's like, Justin, we gotta change the world. And I'm it's my mission and pursuit to do that, so it's just taking baby steps at this point in time.
Right. Nice. And so supply chain management is some areas that I really think about as well, because I used to do enterprise blockchain solutions, and I really thought that aside from the financial sector, the supply chain management was a great place to start with blockchain technology. But at the same time, if you don't have all the value chains inside that supply chain management system that you're building out with blockchain, it doesn't really mean anything, right? So if you only have one company tracing all the stuff from the sources, and you got freight loaders, you got the ports and all that stuff in that value chain, great, but like, what about the other companies are actually sourcing the same thing from that same location and sending it to Walmart or some other places? I mean, if you don't have everybody kind of on that, it doesn't really make a huge difference in our societal change. And what do you think about this? Because that's been troubling me quite a lot. I mean, the financial, like the crypto sector, everybody can trade crypto. It's very inclusive. Anybody can jump on. But like the supply chain management part, it's not something that everybody can jump on. Everybody has a business objective. They want to hide their trade secrets. That maybe they have things that don't really want to share with everybody else, right? That's the difference, because finance is pure money. Supply chain, there's a lot of different stuff that goes into the whole making of the chain itself.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head whenever you said people have things to hide, and I've spoke a lot about blockchain within supply chain management to fight forced labor, to fight child labor, to fight counterfeiting. And then I even get pushback from organizations to say, "Oh, you're taking on a big feat, and it's not fair for you to essentially force other people to participate in something like this. But why do you not want to participate in a solution that provides transparency throughout the value chain?" Right? So that statement tells me that organization has something to hide. And a lot of people also say, we have proprietary information that we don't want to share. Okay, that's fine. Just show me the transaction. Just show me the country of origin. Okay, show me the tracking and tracing of that product from your raw material supplier to your tier 2 supplier, to the manufacturer, to the distributor, to the retailer. That's fine. What proprietary information are you going to be sharing if that's what you're providing? VeChain is H&M's using VeChain, and so we have a lot of use cases that have been successful. In my TEDx presentations, I talk about how IBM worked with Walmart to create a blockchain. The one example that I used was how Walmart worked with IBM to run a pilot to recall a batch of mangoes in 2.2 seconds, which would originally take them 6.5 days. So that was a pilot that I talked about in 2019. But after that, Walmart was able to actually use that and leverage that, where there was a recall on pork, and they were able to recall that pork in another country in seconds using a blockchain. So that's the use cases that are happening in supply chain management. We're seeing IBM TradeLens do a lot of amazing things in providing visibility within the maritime industry, within the supply chain industry. But my ultimate goal is to put an ERP system on a blockchain. And just hold on. Because every single time I explain that to people, they say, "Justin, that's going to take a long time." I know it's going to take a long time. Not only that, that's going to take a lot of money. But I do a lot of research. I love Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is very transparent in explaining and outlining his journey. And Mark Cuban said, "My most successful projects was whenever I explain it to people, everybody says I'm nuts." And he said, whenever somebody agrees with that vision, he says, "That's not crazy enough. I have to go back to the drawing board." But for this one idea, this one vision of me putting an ERP system on the blockchain and everybody's saying I'm absolutely crazy, that's why I'm moving forward with it.
And explain to the audience, some people might not know, what is ERP?
So ERP is an acronym for Enterprise Resource Planning. So Enterprise Resource Planning Systems, Enterprise Resource Planning Applications. The main organizations that provide these solutions are SAP, Oracle, Infor, those companies. So an Enterprise Resource Planning application, the way I put it is, it's the system that runs my enterprise. It's the system that runs my organization. So a number of you input data into some system online, right? And you're frustrated to say, I have to code in this stuff all day long, over and over and over again. But there's value to you inputting that data into that application, because that data is being tracked, it's being analyzed, so it's being rolled up into reports so that the leaders of your organization can make their short-term and long-term decisions. Their short and long-term decisions in terms of staffing. Their short and long-term decisions in terms of expanding the organization. Their short and long-term decisions in terms of budgeting for products. Their reports they have to do to the banks, to the auditors. All of that data, all of that reporting comes out of the enterprise resource planning application. So but the problem with the ERP applications is that all of that information is centralized, right? And because it's centralized, although we have these robust $1 million systems, organizations still don't trust each other. So if we put these transactions on a decentralized blockchain that's transparent to everyone, now we increase the trust throughout our supply chain or our supply chain networks. So that's why I'm very passionate about it. That's why I think that this can lead to a positive. And I think that we're all going to this Web3 decentralized environment as we progress, where we're integrating blockchain with artificial intelligence to essentially democratize technology. Now, another thing I always say is, yes, if I'm looking to democratize ERP applications, those the SAPs and the Oracles, they say, Justin, they're going to come after you. No, there's enough money to go around. When we go to this Web3 environment, we're seeing it with NFTs. There's enough money to go around, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but there's enough money to go around. And another one of my TED Talks, I talk about how these solutions are going to create this sharing economy, right? And create opportunities for so many people that do not have opportunities now. Like I said, if you look at the non-fungible token space, you're seeing a lot of undiscovered artists that are now being discovered and are now receiving what they have been owed for years and years. And that's only the beginning.
Yeah, there's so many to unpack right there, but let me go back to the supply chain part. So, let me play the devil's advocate here. So, there's a lot of saying in the blockchain industry saying that if there's garbage going in, then, there's only garbage going out, right? So let's say you're an enterprise, and I'll give you an example. I was watching Channel News Asia, which is kind of like the national news agency that reports about global news basically in Singapore, and I was watching a mine in India, and it's not really a mine, it's like a field with a lot of people who are just living around the forest, and they were digging up mica. It's kind of like these minerals that you use for supercomputers, self-driving cars, cosmetics. I mean, China and Japan are like the largest importers of mica from these Indian villages. And there's only a handful of villages that actually produce these things. And it goes into every single cosmetics products out there. So these people or these companies don't really want to know where it's actually coming from, because all these people are actually illegal workers. They could be children. These are very desolate places with people who have nothing else but to dig these, and they can't farm, they don't have industries, so this is the only thing that they have. And they can't send their children to school, and the prices of these things keeps going down and down, and they can't even afford their daily necessities. Now, people are using cosmetics products or are looking to drive self-driving cars from these people who are actually creating these things, right? Or digging these things up. So how do you enforce let's say a middleman in India who's sourcing all these things from illegal sources and then sending it on to the supply chain, but they're not going to be the one saying, "Oh, I've exploited these people, so I'm just going to write this down in the ERPs or whatever it is." I'm sure they don't even have a system to even put those things down. So how do you make sure that the end or the manufacturer of these companies make sure that all this information is actually properly written down on as data?
So you make an excellent point in that, in the centralized ERP world, yeah, I can just say, yeah, it comes from this supplier. But in some scenarios like that, technology is not going to resolve that. That's going to take people. Right. It's going to take organizations to ensure audits, to instill audits, to instill these regulations in place, to put certification processes in place, to ensure that these materials are coming from ethical sources. Now, if they don't, there is a big reputational risk for these organizations. And we saw that with Apple, where Apple used contract manufacturer Foxconn, and Foxconn was having their employees sign suicide pledges, and they were putting suicide nets outside of the campuses and things like that. And Apple caught a lot of heat for that. That's a reputational risk. I'm an Apple user, and I want Apple to do better as well. Right. So, but that is still a mark on Apple as an organization, and Apple is so massive that they're able to fix the problem, if you will, for the lack of a better term. Right. But if you have a small $10 million organization that's working with these villages, they're using unethical practices. And now you have someone from that village who has access to Twitter, to Facebook, to YouTube, and starts publishing this. That's a big problem for a small $10 million organization. Right. So there's a lot of reputational risk to acting unethically. And that's where corporate social responsibility, I call it social responsibility, because the term corporate social responsibility says that only $1 billion Fortune 500 companies can make a positive change. No, it's everyone's responsibility to make a positive change. It's the individuals in that village to report this, to make a positive change. Right. And that's where I talk a lot about citizen scientists in my book, and citizen scientists are essentially every single person on the planet. So you don't have to have a PhD to research and to report data. If you can collect data and you can report data and you make that data transparent to everyone, you're a scientist. Darwin didn't have a PhD, right? There were so many people that were citizen scientists that you read about in the history books. And my thing for all the audience members is, if you're a citizen scientist, you can be written in the history books by making a positive change from a sustainability perspective. And another thing I talk about is this still ties to your question, by the way, but Another thing I talk about is, whenever, from a business perspective, we always talk about the triple bottom line with people, planet, and profit. But you're going to see an emergence to the quadruple bottom line, where you're going to include a fourth P of purpose for organizations. So whenever an organization begins the company, you're going to see Gen Zs and millennials to say, okay, their 3 Ps are good, but what's their purpose? Why did they start this company? Right? Why did Apple start the company? It's totally different than why Patagonia started their company. Right? So based on what you stand for, based on what you believe in, that's whenever you're going to start seeing a shift in consumer behavior. Right? So going back to that question, if these companies are not publishing the source of their materials, then consumers are going to say, okay, why do I not know the source? Your competitors are showing the source, so I'm going to your competitors. And I often get the pushback from the industry in that, well, I don't believe in sustainability. I don't believe in global warming. I don't believe in climate change. I said, but your consumers do. Your consumers do. And another discussion in that, where when we're talking about emerging technologies such as blockchain and artificial intelligence, I say that a lot of companies are investing in artificial intelligence right now. I said blockchain, yes, that's a few years away from adoption in the industry. But if you don't invest in artificial intelligence now, as I said previously in other conferences, you may get MySpaced. You may get Blockbuster. Right? You may get left behind by staying by this conventional thinking, this tunnel vision that has worked for you in the past. That's the past. We're now in the future. Right? And the future is transitioning, and it's transitioning very quickly. Right? So the same holds true from a sustainability perspective. People are going to start looking more and more into the organization's purpose, and they're going to start making their buying decisions based on that company's purpose. Gone are the days where I can just throw up a flashy mission and vision statement. Nobody really reads those. But whenever you start thinking about the quadruple bottom line and how it ties to the organization's social responsibility strategy, people are going to start making their buying decisions based on that. Does that make sense? I know that was a long answer.
It already seems like a lot of millennials and even the Gen Zs are really looking at this purpose already. It's a very important part of like how your end customers feel about your company, and that is the main revenue driver for that company, right? It's not just about the product itself, but that story, the narrative that you have about the company actually drives the revenue. So it's important that you have everything straight, everything lined up correctly, so that to the end user you have everything that you can sell, your story, your product, your technology, whatever it is that whatever you have, and then you actually talk to the people, talk to the end users and say, these are what we value. It's not about just business, it's about co-living together, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what it's all about. Whenever you say co-living, I'm doing quite a bit of work within the blockchain ecosystem, within the Polkadot ecosystem, and I have never experienced an environment like that co-living environment. So although organizations are creating a similar solution, so they're competitors, right? But they're collaborating and working together with each other on their solutions. I have this problem. Oh, let's figure it out. Because they have this understanding, they have this mindset, they have this culture, they have this movement where we're creating a sharing economy. We're democratizing so many things with this movement we're creating. And I am trying to think about how I can share that story and demonstrate how that can be transferable to the current state within the industry. Now that's a huge task. So for those in the technology industry, that would be, just imagine if Samsung and Apple were working together on a phone solution, or if SAP and Oracle were working together for an enterprise solution. That's what we're seeing within this blockchain industry. where Polkadot, for example, is working with the people from Ethereum to create solutions, to create a optimal, because everyone benefits. Everyone benefits. And even in the industry, if SAP and Oracle were working together and have this collaboration, everyone benefits. We've seen it in the US with FedEx and UPS. Although they are bitter rivals since the beginning, they said, we have a problem. We have to get this vaccine out to everyone in the United States. Let's put our competition and disagreements to the side, and let's work together, and let's get this vaccine out here. We can go back to competition later, but let's take care of this task at hand. From a sustainability perspective, it's the same exact thing. We have to take care. We have to put the profitability to the side. We have to put our competition to the side. And we have to say, how can we work together to create a more sustainable world? Because the UN said there's going to be 10 billion people in the world by 2050. And if we continue to operate the way in which we're operating, the earth may not be able to sustain it. So if we keep operating this way, there won't be any businesses. There won't be any methods for profitability. So that's why we have to make a change from a sustainability perspective. So that's why purpose, whenever you're making your buying decisions, is going to be very important. And I think you're going to see a shift because those people, those leaders, this is just my thoughts. Those leaders with this conventional thinking, they're reaching retirement age, right? And you're going to see a lot of women. You're going to see a lot of millennials. You're going to see more minorities entering into those leadership roles, right? And one thing I typically share is that there was a survey that I seen on LinkedIn about a couple months ago, and it showed the top 5 countries that did the best in the pandemic, in controlling the pandemic. I think 4 of the 5 were led by women. Now I said, these countries look familiar. So then I looked and said, okay, who are the top 10 most sustainable countries in the world? Same exact ones. So if that's any kind of indication of where we as the human race, not just in the US, not just in Singapore, globally, if that's any indication of where we should go and where we should be collaborating and communicating, we need to bring in more diverse leaders within an organization. Within our communities, within our associations, within our NGOs, within our governments. And I think if we do that, we can make a change.
For sure. I think the baby boomers, or maybe even the kind of earlier Gen X's, I guess, that were exposed to this whole neoliberalism during the 80s and 90s and kind of gone beyond, found that, being so individualistic and very self-serving is quite empty, and I started to think that a lot of the people who are much younger, the Gen, I'm a Gen X, I get that, millennials get that, Gen Zs get that. I think that, they've seen all that kind of stuff happening to all over the world where you have racism and bigotry and I think it's just pure individualism, right? It's just me kind of thing. Doesn't work anymore. And, everything has to come together. This whole blockchain movement didn't come out from the boomers. It didn't come out from the Gen X's. It actually came from millennials, right? and the whole idea of like open source and collaborating together. I mean, I haven't even seen that when I was in the finance industry when I was working. I dove into this blockchain crypto industry, and I found out a lot of these younger people are completely different from the people, the later generations, because these people kind of grew up in an environment when the whole economy was screwed up. You don't see that prosperity that your parents have seen. It's completely different now. So we've already moved on to the world where younger people are actually creating the narrative of this society now. It's not the Gen X, it's not the boomers anymore. And once all these people kind of move out from the workforce and these guys are going to take over, I feel like, and maybe I'm being very positive about this, but I feel a lot more secure about where our countries or where human society is going, because they understand it.
1,000%. And I was laughing. I was laughing when you went through that, because we're the old heads in this blockchain space right now. Because if you look at the founders of these companies, look at Vitalik. I don't even know how old he is. I don't even know if he's 30 yet. I don't know how old he is, but I mean, these people. Yeah, I mean, these founders are young. They're like under 30. And if Forbes did a 30 under 30, it'd be all blockchain founders. but one thing I do want to go back on is that, so I actually started in higher education at the Jack Welch Management Institute, and this was back whenever Jack was alive, and he was known as the CEO of the century. But he was also known as Neutron Jack because he fired a number of people during his time at GE. But GE was the most successful company in the world. But Jack, so we were still small whenever I was working there. But and we had like less than 100 faculty members. So Jack would come on and he would talk to the faculty members, and he would tell his story. In that, yes, he was very successful, but what I got from him is that he went through a leadership evolution, if you will, where he started out as a transactional leader. If it didn't provide value, cut it out, process or employee. Okay. But then once he retired, then he turned into a transformational leader. He was traveling the world, sharing his thoughts on leadership and on panel discussions and keynotes and things like that. But then I'd say once he kind of scaled back on his speaking engagements, he then became a servant leader. So he became a servant leader in that he said, here's the mistakes I made. They were good back then. It made the company a lot of money. But here's how I would have done them better. Right? And now he's looking at leaders of organizations and saying, how can I help you? So then I think that from a leadership perspective, that is evolutionary leadership. I think all of us go through that. Right? We go from undergrad, we're focused on making money. Right? We're focused on making money. So we have that transactional mindset, but then we reach success, and then we start speaking, we start doing podcasts and things like that. But then as we get older, then we say, okay, we now have to build the next generation. So then you go into this servant leadership mindset. So I think I think most of us all go through that. Right. And I just wanted to share that story because, like I said, Jack Welch was the most amazing individual I ever met. You could say that, because you see all these successful people, whether it's in sports, whether it's in business, and they put on a good facade, on social media and things like this. But then, you'll see them out in public and say, oh, stay away. Don't touch them. Don't look at them. Things like that. But no, Jack took a picture with every single faculty member at a faculty retreat whenever I started there. Amazing man.
And I think countries are the same as well. So when you're a new country, you're flexing your muscles, you want to show how great you are, invade, whatever you want to do to show that you're strong. But at some kind of maturity, the country starts thinking, no, maybe this is not the way we should be acting. And I think a lot of countries went through that kind of cycle, and the ones that could come out being a really good leader actually kind of mature into this very nice wine type of analogy of like a country where, you know, it's very liberal and inclusive, whereas some countries don't go that direction and they just rot, or they could fall into dictatorship and etc. So I think it really, you know, it's not just about the people too, because it is about the people, because the people drive the country, and then they need to go through that whole cycle in order to get there. And I think that for businesses, it's going to be the same thing. Yes, they want to have market share in the beginning. They're going to be, you know, thumping, you know, their chest and saying, you know, I'm number one. But once you kind of get there, you understand that you can't hold on to your position forever. And then you start to kind of think, maybe I should start sharing different qualities of my company to others so that we can all prosper, because that's kind of the way you want to push forward humanity, right? And I think that, no, I'm not just talking about blockchain or AI or anything like that, but I think all industries should start to think about that. And we're all definitely at that cusp where, you know, we are in crisis. It's not just about the pandemic. It's the climate change, the way we think about each other. Everything is kind of going through this crisis mode at the moment. So we need to have something to kind of move forward, and it's not about me individualism anymore. And I think that age is already done.
Yeah. And again, it all comes back to systems thinking. You know, so we have business. We have sustainability. You know, we have the planet. We have the planet. We have the people. You know, we have the profitability that's going to run operations. But then you also have the technology that's going to provide the visibility to ensure that we're running effectively, right? We have the data to provide insight to ensure that we're running effectively. We're using the data to see how we're performing from a sustainable perspective. So we have all of these things. Yes, you have technology. Yes, you have leadership. Yes, you have, you know, the environmental aspect, you know, different schools of thought, but they all come together. Right. So that's one thing that's very important. And because you have those different schools of thought, you have subject matter experts in those different areas. But those subject matter experts need to come together to find solutions for a better world.
And they need to be held accountable to it, too. And I think that's where technology comes in as well.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
We were talking about sharing economy before we kind of completely changed or went back into those topics, but you know, this sharing economy, I find that it's really interesting. And we were talking about NFTs and being able to tokenize, you know, maybe part of your future income streams, so that you're not in debt. You're actually getting equity for what you're you know going to contribute to society. Or you know, the whole premises of like this whole NFT for artists was that you don't want to be exploited by these central authorities, whether it be Spotify or, you know, whoever those kind of industries are controlling your art. And you want to be able to kind of market yourself and take more share of what you actually created without giving everything up for some other entity to distribute your content, right? And the whole sharing thing is exactly that's where it comes from.
Yeah. And so going back to that, it's not just like the entertainment industry or the art industry. So we have a partner of mine, he's actually a chief security officer at a blockchain company. We started a company called SidTech, where we're developing a test net where we're going to create a safe space for college students to learn blockchain. So we want to bring in students from business, supply chain, accounting, computer science, engineering, so that you have that business experience, that business mindset where you can collaborate and you can work with the computer engineer, computer scientists to develop a smart contract. And every time, and similar to NFTs, every time that particular use case is transacted, it's built in a smart contract that the creators get rewarded for it and they get paid in perpetuity. Right? So we're taking that thought, that approach of NFTs, and because smart contracts are building NFTs, same exact concept, but these students are the creators, and every time that particular transaction is used, they get rewarded for it, because that's the way business should be, right? So if I developed a solution in enterprise resource planning application, in a fintech application, if I'm the creator of it, I should be able to get a cut every single time the SAP or Oracle sells that solution. But then you're going to get kickback from organizations to say, okay, well, I paid his salary for 5 years before he actually created that solution. Right. But then he's still bringing value to your organization. But now he's bringing value on top of a revenue generating instrument. You pay sales guys a salary, plus you give them a commission once they sell. It's the same exact thing. So that's where I think that this whole idea is going in terms of integrating blockchain within business to create a sharing economy. And I think that going back to sustainability, we're going to need something like this to incentivize people to act ethically, to incentivize people to make a positive impact on the environment. That's my belief. Because we've been talking about sustainability for a number of years, and we haven't made enough of a positive impact. So I think that, if we incentivize, yes, tax breaks are good. Yes, tax breaks are good, for organizations, but it's a check the box thing so they can get that money, right? Or grants and things like that. It's a check the box thing, So I think if you incentivize and then you decentivize, if you get caught for just simply checking the box and going back to business as usual once you get incentivized, right? So you get slashed, if you will. So I think that if you create some type of model like that, I think that we'll make a better change. And you're seeing that within these metaverses, within blockchain. So I just did a Medium article for a blockchain company called BitCountry, and they're creating a metaverse, and they are essentially creating an inclusive world, right? Now, I don't know if you remember SimCity, and those applications back in the day, back when I was in elementary school, but we had these digital worlds. We had these digital worlds that we played for hours and hours and hours. And then you have Fortnite now, where these these users are paying a lot of money and getting nothing in return. Right? These metaverses on a blockchain, you are going to be able to show off your NFTs, show off your art. Going back to what we talked about, we're able to create this sharing economy that we're referring to. And in that Medium article, you can just type in my name in Medium and it'll come up. We are creating worlds. We're creating actions. We're creating activities that will hopefully be transferable from this virtual world into the real world. And going back to the quadruple bottom line, whenever I interviewed Ray Liu, one of the co-founders for this solution, he shared his story, and it was evident that because of his experiences, as an individual from Chinese descent that moved to New Zealand, it was evident that he created this world for a reason, right? This world, this virtual world, this metaverse was he and Shannon's the other co-founder. It was their purpose. Their purpose is from their purpose, they created this metaverse that is inclusive and that is for everyone. And within this metaverse, you are able to innovate. You're able to be an entrepreneur. You're able to create opportunity no matter where you're from, no matter your background, no matter your social class. Everyone is equal. And that's the utopia that I envision, that I see in my lifetime. So if you get enough people in these worlds that are seeing this every single day, right? Every single day, maybe that's transferable to the real world. Because look at social media. They're seeing all this stuff on social media. So that's the reality that they try to live, that they try to emulate. So if we can do that within these metaverses, I'm not even a gamer. I'm not a gamer, and I'm excited about this because I see the social impact that can come out of these solutions, right? So if we do that, if we transfer that, if we explain it in that way, if we have people look through that type of lens, I think that these solutions on the blockchain make a huge impact.
I think what the tokenizations of various things, whether it be NFTs or utility tokens, whatever they may be, has showed us that behavior incentivization is kind of what creates value. And I see that the punitive actions from governmental authorities actually doesn't do much justice, right? Because we've seen time and time again large corporations being penalized with a small fraction of their revenue and just wipe it off as, cost of business. And what these tokenization things can do is that they can completely decrease your value, completely decrease the value of your business and drive down your business, right? And if you can incentivize a lot of the end users of your company and drive up the prices, whatever the tokens are or whatever they are, then that should show the real true purpose of your company through those behavior patterns of that company. And I find that it's going to be a much greater source of how you look at a company's true value, as opposed to whether it's share prices or the other methodologies that we look at companies in the traditional world. And I think that's a really interesting way that we can kind of create a new world by a very more egalitarian, meaning not being equal as a result, but being equal at the opportunity side for all the societies to be able to kind of uplift themselves out of this whole kind of idea that you're set back by color or your social status and all these things, because it really fundamentally has nothing to do with who you really are. And I find that this kind of new world, that whether it be that metaverse, or if you could bring that into reality, I am very positive that we can go towards this direction. We all share the kind of same mindset. And we spoke for quite a long time, so it's been a really wonderful discussion, but if you have any parting messages, I'd love to hear it.
So whenever I have these discussions on the positive impacts on technology, on diversity and inclusion, on sustainability, I'm normally talking to people who get it, who understand it, right? Who are on the same side as I am. My goal, my key takeaway for people listening to this is to take the knowledge that you have and share it with the world so that we can all get on the same page. Because if we continue to operate business as usual, this pandemic that everyone's talking about, this is only the beginning, right? We're going to continue to see the melting of the polar ice caps due to climate change. And there are so many diseases locked up in those ice caps that we have no clue what can be unleashed. So we have to share this knowledge. We have to come together. We're all human. We all breathe. We all bleed the same. What makes one individual more important than the other, more valued than the other? What makes one country more valued than another? We're all human. We're all living together. And I think that this sharing economy is one thing we have to continue to have the discussion on. And if you would like to discuss further, you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, justingoldston.com. And then you could also go to SYDTech, SYDTEK.ai to see some of the universities that we're currently partnering with to develop this blockchain test net where future leaders and future innovators are going to collaborate to contribute to this Web3 movement and to democratize technology and to leverage technology to create a more sustainable world.
Yeah, that was Justin Goldston, professor of Penn State University. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to reconnect with you again for another episode.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Hi, this is your host Takatoshi Shibayama. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Now, if you enjoyed or disliked this show, please let me know by writing in the comment section. The only way I can improve or add value to you is through your voices. If there are any topics that you would like me to pick up, please also let me know in the comments. I'd love to start chatting with you all. And if you would like to continue watching the show, please subscribe. Thank you.